Hey folks, welcome to today's podcast. I'm Matt Horowitz.
I'm Scott Brills.
And this is podcast number 2.
Unnamed podcast number 2.
Yeah, unnamed podcast. We'll have a name at some point, but this is how you start. You just got to start things, and then eventually you tweak and refine as you move along, which foreshadowing is going to be one of our topics of our conversation later today. So, Scott, let's start it off. I know that you just got back from a great trip.
Yes.
Tell us where you were, what were you doing, what went down?
It was amazing. So I was invited by a few friends from New York that I met last year to participate in Skipwin 2013, which is a group of authors and bloggers and location-independent professionals and marketers and whatnot, life coaches. And basically it's 12 people. You get together, rent Eco Lodge in the middle of the Mayan Riviera, so right south of Cancun. And you're there for a little bit of work, a little bit of play.
What was the weather like down there?
The weather was amazing. I came back. I was not very happy. The first night was a little bit cool, but other than that, it was just beautiful sunshine every day. We spent every day in the pool, in the hot tub. We had our own cave with a water slide in it called a cenote.
Did you have photos of this?
Oh yeah, I got photos. Maybe we'll throw a few up with the podcast. But it was great. I mean, of course, the location was great and the activities were great. We went on a catamaran one day. We went to a water park where you floated down this like lazy river and snorkeled and zip-lined all day, along with all you can eat, all you can drink, which was fun. We also spent one day on Friday. We had a chance to go to a Mayan village where one of the guys that works at the Eco Lodge, that's where he's from. And we spent the whole day there. We met the people and met the kids, and we delivered some diabetes testing supplies as kind of a small way to give back, for their hospitality. We did that, and we then hung out with the kids, visited the school, learned a little bit about the community. Most of them don't speak Spanish. That was pretty interesting, being in the middle of Mexico with a group of people that don't speak Spanish.
What's the indigenous Mayan language?
It's Mayan.
Oh, it's Mayan.
So, yeah, there may be a word for it in Mayan, but
I answered the question. The answer was in my question.
So yeah, we had a really good time meeting them and learning about the ways that they lived and checking out the village. It was really, really special. It was cool to do something along those lines while we were down there. And besides that, like the best part was just making new friends. Like I knew about half the people that went, and the other half the people, actually, we'll get to that in a later podcast, just about how we first met in New York. There are a few people there. You might know Shogo, or Mike Rostowski, Nick Reese. These are all people that were at the meetup, the Sean Ogle meetup in New York.
I see.
So it's kind of interesting event that changed our lives, in a way.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It was really cool meeting with these people and hanging out, and these are people that are on the same level. I'd have to say most of these people are crushing it on a few levels higher than I am.
Awesome.
And so it's great to meet with these people.
And what are these people doing? What are the various things?
Yeah, they're bloggers, they're life coaches, they run marketing companies, but they're all in the same mindset. They one are usually location independent.
Right.
Two are very optimistic and outgoing and feel that the world is within their grasp.
Definitely.
And three, they're just smart and awesome to be around. And so
smart is good. I like smart people.
Yeah,
smart people living interesting lives is definitely who we need to just continue to surround ourselves with all the time.
Yeah, it was great to have this week together with people that are your peers. Sometimes it's hard to find people that are doing the same thing when you're in this kind of field, and so I felt like everyone was at least my equal, if not quite a bit above me.
Awesome.
as far as knowledge goes, and what we're doing. And so it was cool to connect with them, to hang around with them, play with them, make new friends, and then also like the biggest thing I thought was these random conversations that developed. It was a big Eco Lodge, and so you'd be split into different groups and just kind of do your own thing throughout the day. And there were a few times where I had gotten into conversations with 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and we just sat around and talked for hours on just total different subject matter. It could have been about business. It could have been about traveling. It could have been about love. It could have been about so many different things. And, it was really cool to connect and share with each other.
Nice. Yeah. So you were kicking it down in Mexico. How long were you down there for?
Just a week. I just got back on Sunday.
Awesome. Yeah. And so tell me, I always find it very interesting. Like I think that there's so much that we can learn and model from other people who are, like you said, either similar to us in some aspect, or we look at them as a few steps or a few levels ahead. Sometimes I like to see, a lot of times when I leave these sort of group settings, I have these takeaways like, wow, I really like the way John, somehow brings everyone together in the conversation, or like I kind of learn like whether it's a mindset trick or a tactic or something like that. Did you have any takeaways that you got from any individual people, or just any takeaways in general from the trip overall?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, there were takeaways from just about everyone individually. Some people I knew better than others, and so I kind of knew what their deal was, and we've talked before. But a lot of people, the people I hadn't met before in person, I learned a lot from just in interacting with them day to day, and then sometimes in the one-on-one talks or the small group talks that we had. One of the guys there, his name is Benny the Irish Polyglot.
Oh, okay.
And he had
cool.
the #1 language blog in the world.
Wow, I didn't know.
500,000 readers a month, which is
Damn.
amazing. And just talking with him about the tricks that he uses to get work done, to hire people, or hire the right people, should I say, and the experience he's had basically being a full-time traveler for the last decade. Something I can kind of relate to. And how he's built up his business, and how it's been basically just through a lot of hard work and persistence. And it's great to meet people like that. That in my mind, they've made it. It doesn't mean that the trip's over yet, but they're doing very well for themselves. And it's great to just kind of talk with them and then kind of file different things away in your brain, like that would be useful for later, or, oh, I should think about that, or look more into that. And so I think I pretty much got that from just about everyone that went on the trip. It was a great group.
Awesome. Yeah, I knew that. I think Benny. I haven't met him personally yet, but I've seen him floating around here and there, and he's definitely got to be one sharp guy. So.
Yeah, and it was cool to just see some of the stuff he was working on and hear about his upcoming plans and things like that. A lot of people have big plans coming up for this year and beyond, and it gives you the motivation, that other people are out there just crushing it, and that you should do the same thing, or you can do the same thing as them.
Exactly. Yeah, and family and friends are great, but if you're hanging out with people who aren't inspiring you, aren't educating you, aren't getting you motivated to move forward and do new things, you really need to reevaluate who we're spending our time with. Because I've been very consciously making decisions. People want to do certain things or activities, and I kind of have to. You really got to safeguard your time. It's one of our most valuable assets. And if you're not around people, I'm not saying you need to be around people 24/7 where all you're doing is masterminding. But the cool thing is when you hang out with people who you can learn from and get motivated by, is that they need to relax too. So you can also, you're not just like in this 24/7 robotic, I got to learn and conquer the world mindset, but you can just, choose how you spend your time wisely. So,
and the great thing about people like that is that, and my buddy Aaron, who was also on the trip, he is a psychologist, and so he was having a lot of fun throughout the week, kind of typing people with enneagrams and whatnot. And I think a lot of people really liked his clinical minded type insight into our lives and our psyches and whatnot. But those types of people, more often than not, or I'd say just about 100%, you meet them, just like the meetup in New York that we first met at. You meet them and you instantly click. It's like an instant friend. And, it's just the personality type and the mindset, that just makes for an instant connection. And that's what we had. Like all of us, the whole group of 12 had with one another pretty much immediately. Like by the end of the first day, we were all really just buddies. And so that just goes to show the organizers of the event, Mike Rostowski and Nick Reese, they did a really great job at selecting a group of like-minded individuals.
Awesome. That's what it's all about these days. Like-minded individuals. Get with them or get some new friends. Awesome. So let's switch gears here and let's look at our what do we even call our list? I was going to call it.
What have you been up to? What have you been up to the last few weeks?
Sure. I mean, I feel like I talked to you. I guess has it been a month? I feel like I talked to you last week, but
Almost a month, yeah.
yeah. My general thing, as I believe I mentioned it last time, like the overall scheme and plan and mindset for me for the next 18 to 24 months is focused on building up a few businesses I have online. The reason being is I have sort of my mindset on a 2015 departure for really kind of. I have passive streams of income that are set up and they're growing, but they're not at the level yet where I can really kind of be really flowing. Basically, did we talk about structure and flow last time?
I don't think so.
This is a friend of mine, Jason Fonseca at riseonline.net, I believe. He had this cool thing that if you look out into nature, a lot of things, it's kind of like the balance between like work and play, or working really hard, or kind of traveling and going with the flow. Like where's the balance? And he says if you look at everything in nature, if you look at flowers, they kind of have this element of structure and flow. As if you think of a flower, it's what's its structure. Structure is its molecular, kind of the way that it's what's the word I'm looking for? The way that it. What the heck is that? I'm lost for the word. You know what I mean? The structure of the flower, like the molecular or whatever it is a flower
structure.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, the structure of a flower. But then if you look at a flower and like in its essence, it's kind of like it goes with the wind. Like its petals, kind of move, and it kind of like adapts to its environment. All right, maybe the flower's not the best example, but I thought the ocean was the best example one, because if you look at the ocean, here's the ocean, right? It's this crazy, flowy, like waves and tsunamis, and it's calm, and then it's raging. But if you look at the structure of water, it's this rock solid H2O molecular structure that's literally, it's unchangeable. So you have this structure and flow, balance. So my sort of, I've traveled quite a bit, but every time I've had to come back to normal life, and I hate that. So I'm really right now building up my structure, my foundation, the automation, the scalability, etc. And then in 2015, the plan is I'm in South Florida right now, basically going to drive over and spend some time in Arizona, New Mexico, and then basically over the course of 2 to 4 years, more or less, I'm really just going with the flow and playing it by ear. Going to drive from Mexico all the way down to Argentina, so attempting to visit every country in Central and South America. So the overall thing I'm doing right now is I'm pretty much in work mode. I mean, I live in Miami, where it's like beautiful. I live a few miles from the beach. I do try to go to the beach on the weekends, but for the most part, I'm like on my computer, just grinding at it, just doing work. But I had a French couple who stayed with me for about a half a month. They rented my extra room on Airbnb, and they were really, really awesome people. So we became friends. They're somewhere else in the area. The one guy from France, Christophe, he's looking for work, but we've kept in touch. I've hung out with them, and I actually right now have a friend. She's visiting from out of town, and she's here for 10 days. So I'm kind of on mini vacation mode. Although this week I have had a bunch of calls and Skype sessions with some clients. So, but I got sunburned a few days ago, so that's the nice part.
Me too. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. I did this morning in the shower. I'm like trying to wash my body with the loofah. I'm like, oh, this sunburn is killing me. So, I don't know. That's sort of my, I'm in work mode, but at the same time, I live in South Florida. It's February, and I go to the beach. It's 80 degrees. It's 80, 81, 82 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 26 to 28 degrees Celsius. It's beautiful here. So I can't help it, man. It just my friend, she's down for the first time, and she's never been here before, and she goes for runs in the morning, and she's like, damn, it is so beautiful here. Like, we're eating breakfast, the windows are open, the breeze is coming through, and I'm like, yeah, I don't mind being in work mode down here at all, because it's just, I walk outside, the bay is about 1.5 blocks away, so it's quite beautiful. But yeah, that's what I've been up to for the past few weeks. Trying to keep a balance. I'm definitely in the majority of work mode, but from time to time, going to the beach on the weekends, but I'm keeping my social life more kind of toned down. I have friends who come to visit in from town, maybe every couple of weeks, every couple of months. But for the most part, I'm psyched, and I enjoy working on the business and things of that sort. So, you know what? Off topic. I just got. I know that we're not going to really get into it this session, but I just got my. Yeah, my first two. So we'll call this is the travel hacking, airline miles, etc. Just got my first two cards, and once I meet my minimum spending requirements, I got 100,000 miles on Southwest Airlines. So this offer, anyways, this list came up this week, so that was pretty exciting. I got denied for the one
last podcast.
Exactly. Yeah, I got the one month later. So, and anyways, if I got 10 more. This is 100,000 miles, but with Southwest Airlines currently, if you get 110,000 miles within an anniversary year, you get a companion pass. Basically, what that means,
I did not know about that.
It's pretty ridiculous that anybody can fly with me no matter where I go until until the end of 2014. So basically, like because I just got it in January, here was the extra loophole, is that you get it like it goes for all of 2012 and all of 2013. I mean, no, wow. I just totally messed up those dates. I get it.
2014.
Yeah, 2013 and 2014. So I can basically fly pretty much Southwest is like my go-to airline for domestic flights in the U.S. So I can bring anybody with me for free, which is just ridiculous. So
so is this a one-time use or no?
The companion pass?
Yeah.
No, it's good until the end of 2014.
Holy crap! Unlimited flights.
Yes, isn't that ridiculous?
That's amazing. I haven't heard about that. We're gonna have to link to that.
I'll have to send you these. Well, the one offer was dead. I don't know how I found it because I had been looking. Like a bunch of people wrote about it, but then the one offer got taken down. And if I forgot to turn my phone on silent, Scott. Make sure you turn your phone off.
It's already up.
You're ahead of it. Yeah, the offer was dead, and the one card. Because to get the companion pass, you need to accumulate 110,000 miles, which is a lot of miles to get on Southwest.
But not if you do credit cards.
Exactly. But the one offer, instead of it being 50,000, it was actually 25,000. So somehow I found, I don't know how I found it, but I basically put a repeating reminder on my Google Calendar to like email me every week or so, and I just kept searching, and somehow I found it. So, anyways, I thought I didn't have much to tell you about catching up, but that's a little bit
cool.
so.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, with Southwest, I like them just because most of the carriers you got to spend about $25,000 in miles to do a round trip. Within the continental U.S. And with Southwest, I was actually able to get. This is about a year ago when I was flying to San Fran to visit some people. I got a round trip for $16,000, and so they don't base it off of just a flat amount of miles. They kind of take other factors into effect. So it was really cool. So I mean, with 100,000 miles, you've got like 6 round trips anywhere in the continental U.S., which is that's a lot. 6 times, you can do about $400 a flight. That's some money. $2,400 for applying for 2 credit cards.
Yeah, and I mean, and talking on the concept of sort of just creative hacking. I mean, the word hacking to me just means like being resourceful and creative with things, because I got hooked up. I currently have I got braces back in November, so about 3 months ago, and I got a discount up in Pennsylvania, but I didn't want to stay up in Pennsylvania just because I hate living in cold weather, so I decided to come back down to Florida, but have to travel about five times a year to get my adjustments, which is actually cheaper than me getting braces down in Florida.
Oh, wow.
So, but now with my new Southwest stuff, it's going to be pretty easy to go back up and get the adjustments I need on my braces. But the funny thing is that I get the discount because I have a family member who works at an orthodontics office, but they have to remain working there the whole time, which is like basically 2 years. So if they end up not working there, my idea was I'll probably fly over to Mexico, somewhere just across the border, because basically dental, like across the border, whether it's Texas or New Mexico, Arizona. Does New Mexico border?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure. It was just the two. But I was thinking, the dental cost is about 70% less in Mexico, and there's a boatload of dental places that are set up just across the border, and 80-90% of their clientele are all Americans. So anyway, it's just sort of the way that I think about. A lot of people sort of think like, braces are in one, but it's accessible. If you can figure out creative ways to do things, you can really save a lot of money on dental work or whatever else it may be.
Geo arbitrage, yeah. need a little bit of plastic surgery or gender reassignment? Head over to Thailand.
Exactly. Let's look on our list here, Scott, and let's jump to the next. Scott and I we scope out. We jot down a few ideas we want to talk about. We go with the flow. Sometimes we get to all of them, sometimes we don't. But We had the concept that we were. I mentioned Scott. I've recently sort of been building up basically the balls to just turn down clients. One of the things I'm doing right now, which is some temporary stuff I do, is I teach people basically how to build websites on WordPress, and I do a lot of teaching over Skype and things of that sort. And I get all sorts of calls for all different kinds of people, and I've worked in real estate in the past, so I kind of have sort of developed my knack of intuition on just reading people or projects. And sometimes I'll talk to somebody on the phone, and I had this one guy who I used to actually make sites for people, but I stopped doing that because it's not sustainable long term. But rather, I just teach
Good
people.
idea.
Yeah, I'm all about empowering people, giving them enough information so eventually they can get off and running on their own, and they don't need me long term, because I don't want people to be relying on me for anything. So anyway, I talked to this guy on the phone, and I could just sense in the tone of his voice that because he was hiring somebody else, he expected me to like be his bitch pretty much. Now, it was very subtle in the conversation. It wasn't apparent, but I just somehow got this gut feeling that this guy isn't the kind of person that I want to be working with, and will be more of a headache later on. So like, and I felt the urge to say it, but immediately I was just like, he was talking, but inside my brain I'm thinking, man, I got to drop this call. I'm wasting my time on this call. I don't want this client. And of course, it doesn't make any rational or logical sense, but it doesn't matter. If you have a gut feeling on a client, don't think about, oh, this is going to make me $500 or this is going to make me $1,500. It might make you $1,500, but that headache of that client and let's take this and convert this story to, maybe it's not a client for you, but maybe it's a friend, or maybe it's I don't know, any kind of commitment. If you get a gut feeling not to work with somebody, as stupid as it sounds, I just tell people, look, I just got to interrupt and tell you, I have a gut feeling on this, and this isn't the project I'm going to take. I'm not the man for the job. Just want to tell you right now and save us some time. And anyway, just been turning down. I get a lot of calls from my advertising I do, and I just been turning down. I turn down more people than not, and I'll tell you what, it's a lifesaver. And I know that you had some feedback on you've been doing the same thing. Kind of, you've been breaking up with some clients and things like that. What's the kind of the mindset and the courage, and what do you have to do in that sense when it comes up for you?
Yeah, it's tough. When I started off 10 years ago or so, you have to take everything you can find just to survive and to grow your business. But wow, I was burned so many times. We had just horrible clients or people that wouldn't pay you. Yeah, I ran up against that a lot, especially since I was pretty young, and people thought that they could take advantage of me, which in a certain respect is true. You're just young and naive, and you got a lot to learn. So, nowadays when I get proposals to work with somebody or to do a project or something like that that's out of my scope, well, I would say up until last year or so, I would always say yes. I was still in that mindset, even though I shouldn't have been, because I don't need the money, particularly, or I don't need the work, and I'm already, busy as hell. Yeah. I would still say yes, because it was still just in my brain to just automatically say yes, and I want to please people. I always want to be like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, no matter what, because that's just how I started, and that's just the way my mind works. I always want to help people out, and through a series of events last year and some epic failures, I realized that there's only one of me to go around, and I only have so much time. And so I really have to be more gregarious about picking what tasks I do, and the only tasks I take should be the ones that I know I can do good and I can do within spec. And there were a few times last year where it was stupid too. I was planning for my Africa drive, and so that was a whole nother full-time job, and I was traveling all over the place, and I'm running my company, and so I was just saying yes to these projects that I definitely shouldn't have been saying yes to, and I disappointed some people, I angered some people, just because things weren't done as they wanted, or there was a lack of communication in some areas. And so it was a learning process. You have to sometimes fall on your face a few times before it gets through your thick skull, and that's what happened to me last year. And so this year I'm really trying to be vigilant about saying no to people, or it doesn't have to just be a flat no. Sometimes I can, through my connections, kind of segue that into, hey, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you out with this, but I might know some people. So let me get back to you. I'll reach around, see if anybody is free, and I'll let you know if someone can help you out. And that's how I usually try to do it. So it still keeps in the mindset that, hey, I can help you, but it won't necessarily be me, but I can maybe be a part in that and hook you up with somebody that can help you.
Yeah. I have some people who ask me about extensive e-commerce stuff, and it's not really exactly. I don't do a lot of e-commerce, so I tell them, yeah, I'm going to send you to my quote unquote business partner, and it's just a friend of mine who's more of a programmer, and I send the business off to him, and we split the referral. So yeah, there's ways to do that. I think saying no is one of the hardest things. It's so because there's people fall. One of the big things I'm a proponent of is pushing up and going against social pressures and social norms. And one of those is it's just literally there's so much social pressure that it's so hard to say no to all kinds of things. I mean, girls say yes to guys for a date they don't want to go on. People say yes to business projects they can't commit to, or all these sorts of things. And then what do people end up doing? They just end up flaking, and you don't hear from them. So it's just like you save a lot of face, you save a lot of time. And I think I've come across some pretty successful people, and I realize one of the key characteristics of these people is their just directness, their honesty, their openness, and sometimes their bluntness in their communication. Just like, where was I sometimes? Oh, what was funny? I went to buy a piece of furniture over at a store that maybe is about 5 blocks away. It was this desk I'm sitting at right now. And this guy helped me. We tried to load the desk inside the back of my car, and it didn't fit. And I said, hey, man, I said, would you give me a hand giving this, walking this down to my street? I'll pay you. And the guy said, how much? I was like, I don't know, I'll give you $5. He says, fuck no. And he didn't even hesitate. And he just said F no right away. And immediately I stopped, and I was like, man, where did you learn how to communicate like that? Most people would be like, nah, well, like they'd have some kind of like wishy-washy thing. But he was right, and he wasn't mean about it, but he was just so direct. He was just like, F that. And I was like, wow. Like, I was so taken back that I had to like pause and admire him for like, wow, man, like more people need to communicate like that. But yeah, I think there's.
What do you say? Did you actually ask him where he learned that, or just thinking that?
I said, like, I got to say, man, like, I really admire that kind of communication. I said something along those lines, and he's like, because this place is like a volunteer place where people come and they donate furniture and clothing items, and then they sell it to raise money for like kind of HIV and like a goodwill. So this guy's a volunteer there. He's like, dude, man, this isn't my. I do like like he basically was like, I'm not as worthless as you think. And I was like, no, I wasn't thinking that, man. I just said $5 because that's all I really was willing to pay. If it was any more, I would drag it down a few blocks myself. And he's like, I'm just a really real dude, man. And I was like, that's freaking awesome, man. So
I appreciate that too. There's something that happened maybe in the past week or two where I was like, wow, I really admire that person's ability to just be straightforward and direct. And that's something that they have to work on, especially kind of growing up my younger years in Japan, which is a very non-direct society.
Yeah,
and I think
definitely.
I got a lot of conditioning from living there, and that isn't. I mean, it's good in some situations, like for instance, if you're going to live in Japan. But then for a culture like ours, that is, a lot of times directness is something that would be helpful in conversations or interactions.
Yeah,
it's something you got to work on.
Yeah, it's my personality style, and the more and more I can get my communication to match that, the better. One thing I've really gotten good at over the past, probably the past 6 months or so, is I really kind of have a good stronghold on my email. I get a lot of emails, and for average, like right now, my inbox, I have about 4 or 5 emails, and that's not unread versus read emails. There's nothing else in my inbox but 5 emails, and I get a lot. And I think one of the things that has really helped me. Well, there's tools and mindset and stuff. Maybe we should chat about email some other time. I have some cool stuff I can
write it down.
I just wrote it down on that concept. There's some tools I use to help clean it. Just creating folders and archiving the stuff. But the biggest thing is just saying no to things. And because I think what happens a lot of times, what we do with our emails, we open up an email, we spend the time to read the entire message, but we're not willing to give them the answer that we really want to right then and there. So we'll say, oh, well, I'll I'll write it back to them tomorrow. Or
Star it.
So yeah, I'll
put a
star
reminder
it.
on it.
I'll mark it as unread. I'll move it into this folder and take care of it later. And then what happens is every time they log into their email, they're completely overwhelmed from all these things that are just these undone activities. So, I mean, people will approach me with proposals to do this, write a guest blog post, help me with a business, talk to me on Skype. And it's just like, no, I don't have the time for that right now. Feel free to reach out to me in 6 months. And I'll just be right to the, and I'll sign off with a smiley face or something nice, but I just have been much better at that saying no, which has really helped my productivity in some areas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I know talking about, I guess we can segue client stuff into hiring, basically, because that's the next thing I see on our list here is you said that you've learned some neat, I think we both have some experience with hiring other people or quote-unquote outsourcing and stuff like that. I know that you said that you recently learned some tricks and techniques, or what'd you pick up?
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have time and what do? You delegate. That's another skill that is really essential if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you want to grow your business. And I've been doing this off and on, usually through a service like oDesk, where you can not only hire somebody, but also track their progress because they have an app installed in their computer and it takes periodic screenshots of what they're doing and timestamps it. So that's kind of a neat little bonus that you don't see on some of the other sites,
right,
like Craigslist and whatnot. But yeah, I was talking with some of the people while I was down in Mexico, and I won't mention any names because I don't want to give away any secrets of the trade, but
right,
there's a couple that stick in my mind that I was talking about during our last day there. One guy, he, like I, also hires people to assist him with different projects on oDesk. And the issue with oDesk, like a lot of places where you're doing hiring, is that you get a lot of spam applications.
Right.
And so just like, any kind of job application, whether it be in the paper or Craigslist or whatnot, you get a lot of people that are just copy, paste. If anything kind of has the right keyword or whatnot, and they don't even bother reading the description of it. I'd say that about 90% of the applications I get for any projects I put on oDesk they're not necessarily unqualified, but you could tell that they didn't read the description, and you
right,
could tell that it was a canned response. Because I might be saying, hey, I need somebody to help me out build this WordPress website, and they're waxing on about in their intro email about how they're so good at video editing and whatnot. And it's like, hey, that doesn't have anything to do with what I need.
Yeah.
So this one guy, what he does is he inserts, I'm not going to even say the word either because it's a special word that is his word to use. And so let's make up another one. Let's make up, what's a funny word we can use? Can you think of a funny word?
I mean, I think I may know what you're talking about, but I didn't know that you wanted to keep it a secret. This is a tool that most people have access to, right?
Well, it's just this particular word. So let's say horse. I'll just say horse. It's not a funny word, but it's a distinguishable word. So what he does is he writes out the entire description of what he needs for his project.
And this is when he's posting his proposal on odesk.com.
This is when he's posting his proposal, on oDesk. So he writes out exactly what he needs. In the middle of his post somewhere, he will insert a sentence that says, when you respond to this posting, I want the first word of your post to be horse.
Right.
If it's not horse, I will not read your proposal. Okay. And he just inserts this sentence randomly throughout his proposal. So it makes sure that anybody who's applying for it and is serious, which means that they've read the post and understand what the requirements are, they know to put horse at the very top of their application, where they write about themselves and how they can help out.
So anything that doesn't start with horse, you just delete it.
Right. There's a way in oDesk where you can actually sort all of your applications on one page, and you can click on any of them to kind of expand it a bit, and then you can click again to see the entire post and find out about that applicant. Uh-huh. So this allows him to see in the first line of every single one if they've actually read the post or not. And the ones that he hasn't read, he can just click hide. And he said it's usually less than 10% of people that apply actually do that. And he knows that those people are serious about it.
Wow.
I thought that was kind of a cool time-saving trick, and I'm definitely going to be using that from now on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll write it down. Go ahead.
So then the other trick that I heard was one of the guys has this really, really deep interview process, but it's all automated. And if you've heard about companies like Google and these really interesting questions that they ask their job interviewees, he basically has set up a system through WordPress, Gravity Forms, which is this really cool forms plugin for WordPress. He makes these multi-level forms where he asks all these really interesting questions, and he some that have to do with the position he's hiring for, and some not. Some that he just wants to basically make sure these applicants are serious, and so that they put in the time. And this is a multi-step process. I think he said it's about a 3-step process. So he'll have different tiers. If you complete one tier and he likes it, he'll have you go on to the next and the next. What his reasoning is that at the end of this process, he says that these applicants will have put in about 8 to 10 hours of their own time, unpaid, just to apply for this position. And in his intro paragraph or whatever, he will put that you will learn more from working with me in the next few weeks or months than you would learn in a year at a traditional company. And so he gives them kind of the motivation, the initial motivation to go through with this process. And at the end of it, he said he's come out with some amazing contract workers, and some that continue working with him on multiple projects, some that become friends. But he was just talking about the different people he's met, and I should actually try to get that chain of questions from him, just to kind of check it out and get some ideas for myself once it comes to hiring people more in the long term for bigger projects like he's doing at this point.
Yeah, I think if you layer creativity on top of a lot of these tools, you can get a lot done. I've had a lot of success with Craigslist. I've used Craigslist a lot for renting out rooms in some houses I used to live in. I found places to live over in Israel. I've sold a few cars and a few motorcycles on Craigslist. I've done some, and also I've hired, there's a woman who works with me today on one of my projects, and we've been working together for over a year and a half, and I originally found her on Craigslist. I have some best friends that have rented rooms from me on Craigslist that are best friends now, and I've met them on Craigslist. Now, Craigslist is because I think any system that's so large, you get a lot of crap. It's like YouTube. If you think of YouTube, YouTube is enormous. It's got so much content on there, and there's a lot of shit. But if you know how to look for the good stuff, you can just find it abundantly. What I've done when I'm looking for someone to do a short-term project or even a long-term, like a virtual assistant or anything like that, what I'll do is I'll post a very lengthy description, and then at the end I'll say, if you're interested, click here to to watch this video. What I had somebody doing is I was doing some AdWords consulting for some people, and I had this little trick that I kind of discovered where it was basically in this specific finance industry, I realized there were some people who were falsely advertising, and I knew how to figure out that they were making use of wrong keywords. So that was my pitch, like, hey, I recognize that you're wasting your money because you didn't use these as negative keyword, yada, whatever the description is. But I was going too much into details on that one. Anyway, what I would do I needed to hire an assistant to help me basically come up with a prospect list of all these people who I could email or call and approach and just give them some free advice and help them out. What I would do is in my Craigslist posting looking for these people, I would have a lengthy description, and then at the bottom I would say, click here to watch this video and learn more. What I then did was I made a video screen recording of myself. First of all, I introduced myself. I said, this is my personality. This is how I work. This is how the job is. And then I said, here, I'm going to show you how to do it. So then in the video, I showed them how to go into Google and do these different searches and look at these different websites. And then I showed them how to compile all that information into an Excel spreadsheet. At the end of the 30-minute video, I said, if you're interested, please go ahead and do a demo spreadsheet with about 15 to 20 things. Basically, at the end of the day, by the time that people emailed me, they had already read my ad, watched a 30-minute video of me explaining, first of all, if they don't like my personality, they're not going to work with me. They got who I was. And then they sent me so right away when they're sending me an email, attached as a sample of the work. And imagine how much time people waste by doing, whether you're hiring or looking for like a part-time, a full-time employee or a virtual assistant, how much time you waste by just stupid email replies where you can just scale that out and automate it so easily. Another trick that I know somebody else does is what they'll do is in a Craigslist post, if you don't have the need for a video, what they'll do is they'll actually say, click here to apply. when they click there, it actually takes them to a Google Doc that they've made. Or Google Doc, it's kind of like you can do something similar to a gravity form, although I don't know if you can probably make it multi-step if you kind of hack it together. But what they do in this Google Doc is that they have all these, like, fill in your name, fill in your email, what's your experience. Like, you can ask as many questions as you want. But the thing is that when somebody hits submit, you don't get interrupted with their email. It automatically goes into a Google Doc spreadsheet. And then at the end of the week, you scroll through the spreadsheet, and now you have all of your applicants in one place. So you can kind of batch work it that way. So I thought those two were some neat strategies.
Yeah, I like it. I didn't hear about either of those people I mentioned using videos, and I think that would be great. Like, if you could combine those two tips along with, like, the video stuff you're talking about, I think that makes a really cool, like, multi-step process for them to know you, and then you to kind of get to know them and their skill set.
Yeah, I think video is going to catch on more and more, but I use video in so many different ways. It saves me so much time. I'm on a Mac, and I have Photo Booth, and a lot of times when I get emails from people that are long, I'll just go ahead, open up Photo Booth, make an email video reply, and then the file size is small enough that I can actually record a video up to 8 minutes in length and attach it to an email, and it'll fit in an email. So, like, you ever get a long email, and it might even be a friend or it could be a business person, and you write this real long email, and then after you write it, you got to go back and you have to proofread it and all this stuff. With video, you don't proofread it, and it's natural to make mistakes when you speak. It's just how we talk. So
right.
I save a lot of time that way, and I do some other cool creative stuff with video. But yeah, it's all about if you're out there and you're doing work online, creativity begets creativity. The more that you get into this stuff, and the more it's like playing an instrument. You learn a couple notes, you learn some chords and things like that, and as the complexity builds, you can play more and more complicated, structures of notes and things like that, and you can really do some pretty cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What was our next topic we have was, which is kind of good too, because the learning, we're talking about learning through doing here, or learning by action. And this is actually funny because I think the last video I shot on my blog was on the concept of imperfect action. And I said that imperfect action trumps the analytical research phase. Not to say that it's not good, but my personality is a little bit more of a F it, let's just go in and it's funny now, like 2 years later.
An imperfect plan carried out today is better than the perfect plan carried out tomorrow.
Exactly. And the funny thing is that, I now am teaching and consulting in WordPress, and I learned WordPress by doing. I never took a class. I never even did any online training for it. I just, I watched a lot of random tutorials here and there, and, I Google searched out the wazoo like crazy to figure certain things out. But now, 24 months later, I have a mini business running on a skill set that I learned because I just jumped in and did it. And this is how I learned how to buy real estate investment properties and a lot of other things. And also, I've gotten very good at using Craigslist because I just started using Craigslist a lot. Like, I wasn't good in the beginning. I hired people who weren't good. I've been screwed over before with different things, but because I just continually to refine it, rather than someone who would just be on the sidelines researching and analyzing and reading blog posts and all of this stuff, you're not going to learn jack that way. Yeah, you're going to learn it, but you're not going to retain that information. And I have a story that I can share, but I know that I've been chatting. Do you have anything you want to add on the learning by just sort of imperfect action, or just by the kind of the momentum of just moving forward with taking things on like that?
I think that's exactly what we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah. So the story that I'll share is that something really shifted for me when I was about 19 years old. I grew up kind of this this like rebellious punk kid. I smoked a lot of weed and I smoked cigarettes, and I was like this little punk. I didn't have any, I don't know what. Anyway, I ended up going to college. So first year in college, a friend of mine tells me to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book really kind of was the catalyst to get me into self-directed education and self-directed learning. And I had also gotten my real estate license at that time. So I was just starting my real estate career. And all the books I was reading were talking about buying investment property. It just turned out over the next year and a half, I found some, I didn't even think, the first client I ever got was from Craigslist. This was an investor who was looking to buy up some property in a certain area. What ended up happening is my very first transaction. This guy put 5 properties under contract. This was an investor. This was my first deal ever. The guy ended up, it was some little scam routine this guy was doing, and he ended up breaching 4 of the contracts. So I had that was how I got my feet wet into real estate, was trying to clean it up with the other real estate, the people who were representing the seller. My client breached these contracts, and I had to figure that whole mess out. Anyway, one of the deals ended up closing. After that closing, I got a fax from some dude up in New York that said, "We have a lot of money. We're looking to buy property. Give me a call." Those people I actually ended up doing 17 transactions with them my first year, all investment properties. So I did learn a thing or two about, I kind of saw some patterns and things like that, but I didn't even grow up with a ratchet. I mean, my parents didn't have any tools. I was not the handy kid. I didn't know anything. So in the concept of learning by doing, what's funny? You know what's even funnier, Scott? I had already, this was the second property I had bought. I found it on Craigslist.
Great tool.
Yeah, I tell you what. When I say I use Craigslist like crazy, it's such a phenomenal resource if you learn how to use it. But basically, the learning by doing. What I ended up, there's too many backstories in this story now. I'm realizing it's quite long, but I'll make it short. I wanted to learn how to renovate a property, and I knew nothing. I mean, I couldn't even put up a sheet of drywall. I never worked in anything electric or plumbing or whatnot. I ended up hiring some guys off Craigslist, and I worked with them on site, and I took time off. It was about a 6-month project, and I basically renovated this property with these guys day in and day out. I got robbed 3 times. 2 times they took all of my copper piping, and twice I got all of my tools robbed. So I had to go back to Home Depot and get all of my, reciprocating saws and drill bits and I mean everything. The one guy ended up working. I worked with these 2 guys. One was an uncle. It was an uncle and a nephew. The nephew ended up getting arrested, I think for a gun possession or something. So I mean, on top of that, these properties are in the ghetto of South Philly. So this guy gets a.
Oh wait! Where you were born and raised?
No. I grew up. Lucky me, I grew up in the suburbs, about 45 minutes north of Philadelphia. But where am I getting into? I didn't realize this story was so juicy with all these details. It's learning by doing, but and it sounds crazy, but I am compressing a large amount of time into a short story. So the one guy ended up getting arrested, and then through the experience I had gained, I realized that even though I didn't have the handy skills, that I actually knew more and was smarter than the other guy that was working with me. So I ended up firing him. I ended up running out of money. Before I ran out of money, I actually rerouted the entire plumbing in the whole house with the one guy. Me and him did it. So I learned plumbing just by doing it. Rerouted the entire thing from basement to second floor. And then I ran out of money. The property sat vacant for a number of months. And just basically, I realized that in order to get this finished, I needed to get some outside funding. So then I got into private money and private lending. I found a private lender, got a private loan to finish the construction, hired somebody new. Anyway, here we are. This was in 2008. We're in 2013. That property has since been renovated for a few years. I have tenants in there every year. They pay me rent. Anyway, this is this long story short. I couldn't have learned any of that unless I just jumped in. And look, maybe I spent more money on construction than somebody else would, but the lesson I learned from that was invaluable. Kind of my mentality on hiring contractors and all that sort of stuff. So I think learning by doing is my personality, definitely. I say F it, I jump right in, and I don't mind sucking in the beginning. There's a good quote I had on my wall for many years. It said, anything that is worth doing poorly at first until you master it. And, I'm more of an extrovert in some sense, so if you're an introverted person, you can adapt this to your style, but I think there's great power in jumping in and sucking for a little while. So you have anything to add on to that, Scott? Any examples that you know of?
Same exact way. All of my skills, if you want to call them that, that I'm making money with right now, I learned them all just through teaching myself, through doing, whether that's programming or web design, or learning how to use like Photoshop,
right,
or networking, or I don't know, what else do I do?
Yeah, you're jumping on that note. Scott is one of the guys that I indirectly pick his brain from time to time because he's definitely very. I like the way that you network. You definitely do it, and it's not in a like a lot of people who do networking are like, let me network to see what I can get out of people. And
Right.
Scott, you have a genuine approach to like you're looking to meet, you're looking to make cool friends, and then if there's additional things you can do on top of that. Were you always social like that? Were you always
No,
networking? So
I kind of started off. I think like my original personality was social, like kind of social, not so awkward. But then in middle school and in high school, I got a little bit shy and awkward, which all went away when I studied in Japan for a year. I came
awesome.
back, and I mean, I still had a lot to go, but I would throw myself out there. I'd go to these networking meetings where I'd totally be the youngest person around. I'd be hanging out networking with these like 40 and 50-year-olds. And I would just do that all the time. I would just, whenever I saw a networking event, I would go there. And I can't say that most of them turned into money-making ventures, but I gained from it just as far as being around other people, working the room. And like you said, my goal was never really to get business. Maybe in the beginning it was, just
Right.
because I was a bit naive. But especially now that when I network, I don't do the LBN or the BNI or things like that, where most of those people are just in it to get money. They're not there
What's
to
the
make
LBN
friendship.
for those who?
Local Business Network, and BNI is Business Networking International. They're kind of like these networking groups that are throughout the country and maybe the world. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I've had some experience with them. And generally, it's just like, here's my business
It's
card.
like
This is
business
what you do.
referral stuff, right? Like
Right, yeah, and then next person. And I always thought that was really cold and impersonal, and I never really got into it, and I never got any business from it either. Yeah, my approach is just now that I'm hanging out with a lot of people like us, is just to go in with, and try to make some friends. And if you're a friend, you don't have to ask for the business. The business will just come to you. Your
Right.
friends want to help you out,
Right.
and you want to help them out. And so it's a mutual thing. And so I never go into anything with the intent of making money, not even businesses that I create. I don't go in with the intent of making money. I go in with the intent of learning something and doing what I love. And then if money is made, then it's just kind of a byproduct, and that's great.
yeah, definitely. I think making friends before making business, I think is definitely important. That was something I started to gain awareness of in real estate. Was like, instead of me trying to sell this person, why don't I just try to see if there's anything that we have in common? And kind of, I would be unconventional in the sense that I would meet with, potential new clients, but I'd be talking to them about, triathlons or cycling or some other activities. And before you know it, we're talking 30 minutes on something, and there's this instant rapport, and now doing business is much easier. And I think, I don't know if it's the Japanese, but I know that there's definitely some
You just read my mind.
there's some
Okay.
Eastern cultures that they don't like. They won't do business. They will actually like, if there's a business meeting among Japanese, and whether it's Japanese with Japanese or Japanese American, whatever it is, like they'll talk life basically for how long? You know more details on this, Scott.
Yeah, I was going to say that it might be something that I kind of picked up in Japan, even though I wasn't really doing a ton of business in Japan. I was just kind of doing odd jobs here and there, or out drinking or eating or whatnot. It's definitely something they do as far as, like I was saying before, it's not a super direct culture
Yeah.
in many ways. And so when you come together for a business meeting, it may be over dinner. And for the first 2 hours, you do not talk about business.
Yeah.
You drink, you eat, you hang out with the people, you talk about everything besides business. And then eventually you get down to the business. But it seemed as too direct to just go out there and just be like, okay, we're here, let's go. And that's definitely, it's a way that I tend to structure my business dealings or my meetings or whatnot. Because it works. I mean, if you can find anything, you just talk to somebody for a few minutes, and they're like, oh, I used to live in Austin. Oh, really? Well, I used to live in Austin for 5 years on and off too. And then, anything you can grab a hold of. And of course, at this point, I'm not actually looking for that stuff. I just kind of do it subconsciously. But if
Right.
you're not used to it, just look for something you can grab a hold of. You just kind of have small chat, small talk with them for a little bit. And if you could just grasp onto one thing, it'll lead to more of a conversation. And before you've got it, before you know it, you've got that rapport going between the two of you. And that makes dealing with the business part of it much, much easier once you've actually developed some rapport outside of the business transaction.
Definitely. Yeah, it's That's how I do some video interviews on my blog from time to time, where I try to showcase other people's mindset and work and things of that sort. And when I reach out to these people, especially now, before we even record the video session, I try to have a video conversation with them on Skype for at least an hour, just to get to know them as a person, so that we don't just jump right into this interview, which is very cold and transactional. Rather, I want to understand who this person is and kind of develop somewhat of a relationship. So I reach out to people who yes, they have an interesting business, but more so I think they're an interesting person that I want to get to know. And then once that happens, then we go ahead and we'll do a video together, or figure out a way to do some kind of joint venture together. And it just is it's so much easier to work with friends in life. I like the guy who my quote unquote WordPress business partner, my buddy Justin. I just send him business, and I don't have him sign an agreement or anything. Like, he sends me money. Like, I trust him. It's a much different level of interacting with people in life. So
yeah, definitely.
Looking at the clock here, I think we're wrapping close to the end of our session, and I know that you have one other topic that you want to talk about, and which is some travel gear that you've come across. I know a lot of our listeners are either travelers themselves, or definitely have the interest peaked and want to start to get into that. So I know that you've learned some cool travel gear.
There's a few things. Yeah, there's a few things on the list. I think we'll have to do a podcast, write this down, about travel gear.
Got it.
We'll each pick out a few things and we'll talk about them. But the one thing I'll mention for right now is the Thai salt stick.
What's this?
And I'll mention that because I brought it up during the Skipwin get together in Mexico. I told a few people about it, and some people already knew about it.
So Thai is in Thailand?
Thai is in Thailand, so Thai, yeah, Thai salt stick, and you can get these on Amazon. We'll throw a link into the webpage. It is a replacement for deodorant. I came across this a few years ago. I'd heard about it a few times before.
I'm already sold. I don't know what this is, but it sounds interesting.
Well, I was basically looking at getting something that, one, it ends up costing less money. It doesn't contain any chemicals at all, and it's portable. So it's perfect for a traveler. And I actually read about this on the Around the World, or there's the Around the World blog with a guy that was basically going on a round the world trip wearing just a Scott E-vest with a few pockets, no luggage at all. He was basically taking weeks and weeks to travel around to quite a few different countries and to see how far you could go doing the bare minimalist travel lifestyle. And it was in that he actually went to a market in Morocco, I believe, and he bought the salt stick, and he ended up throwing away his deodorant and using the salt stick. And
how big is it?
It's the size of like a small roll-on deodorant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can get like a rock, but I prefer to go on Amazon and to get it's kind of like a rounded. They've beveled the outside, so it's rounded like a piece of salt, and it's or like a deodorant stick. And
so wait, are you rubbing salt on your armpit?
So this is what you do. Yeah, you rub salt in your armpit because the salt kills the bacteria that cause the smell.
The smell.
So this is not, disclaimer, this is not an antiperspirant. So if you're still sweating a lot, you don't want to see the sweat. For whatever reason, let's say you're wearing a business suit, you don't want your pits to be soaked through. This is not the thing for you. But if you're just looking at going day to day, and I can say that this has worked for me about 90% of the time, where I don't need like heavy antiperspirant. You take a shower. Most people take it in the morning. You can even do it at night. But after that, you just don't dry off your armpits. You rub this stick of salt on it around your armpit. You take about 30 seconds per side. Make sure you get everywhere. It takes a few minutes to dry. And then you're about good for about 24 hours, and there will be no smell. And I was pretty incredulous to this, but I read the Amazon reviews. I saw the video on the Around the World blog, and so I decided I'd give it a shot because it's only like $6.50. And sure enough, that was a few years ago. I'm still using it now. One stick lasts me about a year and a half with about once a day application.
I got to give this a try, man. I've been trying to get off deodorant. I have a younger brother and this guy's very active. Somehow he has weaned himself off of deodorant. He doesn't wear deodorant and he doesn't smell. It's the most, like, if I don't wear deodorant, I stink. So I got to try this thing.
black magic. But those of us that aren't wizards, we can buy this salt stick, and it's an inexpensive way to get around this problem. I was really trying to go kind of chemical free as much as I could. Like I'm not being crazy about it, but anywhere that I could find something comparable for the same price or maybe a little bit more that would reduce the amount of chemicals I'm applying to my body. I've been trying to do that, and so this is perfect to do that. And there are a few caveats. One is if you go more than one day without a shower, like you can actually wet the stick and put it on your armpit, but I found it works best right after you got out of the shower, maybe because your pores are opened up or whatnot. But if you go longer than that, I still keep deodorant with me in case on trips, if I can't take a shower for the night, and then I can use deodorant the next day. Because you find after about 18 to 24 hours, your sweat kind of gradually dissolves the salt and the effect starts washing away.
And you can't reapply it it's best to reapply it after a shower?
You can. I've done it before, but I just prefer to, because then you have to find water and you've got to wet the thing, and it just kind of takes some time. So a lot of times, especially like when I was in Africa, I'll just take that deodorant stick and just use deodorant at that point.
I see.
So, yeah, that's one. If you can't take a daily shower, number two is if you need an antiperspirant, like I was saying, you don't want the sweat to show because it definitely does not stop sweating. It just works on covering up the smell. So for most part, unless you're gonna be doing really, really physically active sports, or you're wearing a suit or something like that, it'll work for you in most occasions. It works for me, I'd say 95% of the time. I barely use deodorant, and it works great. I haven't had anybody come up to me and tell me that I stink yet. We'll see. Maybe I should do like a blind survey about this and see if it really works or not. But yeah, it's been awesome. I really love it, and I recommend it to everyone I come across.
Cool, good stuff. So for those of you who are listening, let us know if you guys have any topics or things of interest that you want us to kind of shed some light on, or more details or more stories you want to hear from Scott and I. Let us know. If you have any experience with any cool Craigslist stories, let us know. I didn't realize how much I have actually used Craigslist until I started talking about that real estate story. Can you hear that airplane overhead?
I can hear it.
I wonder if the mics will pick it up. I actually live about 12 minutes from the Miami International Airport, which you know what I love? Well, first of all, you hear the airplanes going overhead, which sometimes isn't always the best, but you know what? It always constantly reminds me of traveling. So like it's a great kind of foreshadow for me. Like I just see people coming and going, international flights, and I'm just thinking, yeah. So I think in wrapping up, Scott, I know that, did you have any upcoming plans or anything that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
There's a few things. I know we'll get together in about a month or so and do another podcast. I'm just trying to think what I've got going on between then and now. Actually, I'll have stuff up after that. So we'll try to do this about 4 weeks. But right after that, I'll be heading off to Berlin with some buddies, actually with about half the crew that was just joining me in Mexico. And so we're going to actually be seeing a lot of each other throughout the year.
That's awesome.
In Berlin, my one buddy's having his 40th birthday. He was down with us in Mexico, and he's a programmer. And he's going to be doing it in Berlin. We're going to spend a couple weeks there, rent a house, just have a bunch of people in there with us. After that, we're going to Oslo to meet with
great, man.
For his Oslo End of the World party, where he's going to be visiting his last country in his round the world trip and celebrating.
Snap!
It says birthday number 2.
I just said snap! I never say that.
That's your tagline from now on. And then after that, I think I'm going to take off by myself. Hit up Sweden, hit up Denmark. I got some friends there. Circle back to Berlin before I leave. Hit up the conference that is put on there for the Dynamite Circle, which is like an online paid community for location-independent entrepreneurs.
Cool.
Discussing tactics and whatnot. They're going to be having a once-a-year meetup there, and that'll be right before I go home. I'm coming back for about a month, and then I go off to Iceland for 3 weeks. I'm back for a month, and then I go off to Portland again with some of the people from Skipwin. We're going to run a house in Portland and attend Chris Gilbo's World Domination Summit in Portland.
I'll be seeing you there, man.
Nice, that's nice, man. Yeah, you should. We should talk about. Maybe you can hop in with us with the accommodation.
Yeah, if it falls through, don't worry. I have a place I already have booked, but I can make changes if needed. So, yeah, that'll be cool. That's in July. So,
it's July, and then after that. Yeah, well, after that, we'll talk about that later. But
I
up
like
until
it.
July,
I like it.
like I,
You got a lot of stuff planned. That's great, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I think over the next couple, all I'm doing is flying up to Philadelphia to get some brace adjustments, and then back to work building up the business. So, yeah, I might go down to the Florida Keys maybe in the next few weeks or something. But I'm pretty much just in work mode at the moment. So gearing up. So. On that note, anything else you want to share before we wrap up? Did we miss anything? Any closing words?
you're much more focused and diligent than I still cannot get away from the traveling. Every year I
Nah. But but if you think about it, I'm probably doing some of the activities that you've already done. Meaning that, like, I took a career shift 2 years ago, started a new business, so it does take a lot of momentum to get that up and running. And I know that in the next 18 to 24 months, I'll be having like crazy adventures back to back to back for an extended period of time. But I know that what I'm doing, you've done just at a prior point in time.
Yeah, I guess we all got to put in our time,
Exactly. Yeah. So, cool. Scott, always a pleasure. Guys out there listening, girls out there listening, thanks for hanging with us. You got any stuff you want to hear us talk about? You have any questions? Just drop them in the comments below these recordings, and we'll see if we can fit it in. And I think next time Scott and I were going to share some. Scott has some more cool stuff with travel gear. Maybe we'll talk about, kind of really managing your email, because the email is going to become the central communication hub of basically the digital age. So how can you manage that so it doesn't become this overwhelming thing? Because I know plenty of people that have like 4,800 emails in their inbox, and they don't know how to tackle it. So anyway, good stuff coming next time. Thanks for hanging with us. Scott, always a pleasure, man. Enjoy your trip, and we'll talk in about a month or so.
Definitely. Signing out.
All right. Talk to you later. See you.
Bye.